So, because everyone's been mentioning the observer, so it's like, I thought we will talk about the observer. The observer, and this is why I was sort of saying earlier on that if someone says to me, look, if I let my thoughts go, it'll be like I'm losing my cool. Yeah. If I welcome the negative feelings, the fear or the anger up, or the pain up, or if I don't listen to my thoughts, then I'll lose myself. Now, anyone who connects to the observer, there's suddenly a radical, and I'll explain it to you because you might not be aware. If you ever connect to the observer, you'll realize that all this stuff that's coming up, sometimes it's a wave of negative feeling, sometimes it's a thought, like don't feel this, or it'll never end, or whatever it may be. Or you'll die. I had the one, you'll die if you feel it. But something is here which is observing all of that, which is not that. Okay? So how do we connect to the observer? What is the observer? And we'll be doing some practice soon. But essentially it's a little bit like...
Amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's something that is always eternally present, is beyond limitation, beyond time, beyond space. And it's here, and it's always been here. And it's not affected by all the things that come and go before it. And it's not, I was having a discussion with someone on the way up here. Fear doesn't affect it. Nothing affects it. And it's always been here from the start, it's here now. So what happened, what disconnected me from the observer was identification and interest in thoughts and feelings, and then it seemed like that which was always eternally present got obscured. And even worse than that, the things that pass, these negative feelings and limiting thoughts, the idea came up that that was me, and there's nothing beyond this morass of feelings and thoughts, you see. So what is it like? It's a little bit like, for a long time I've been in hypnosis, and it's like, if thoughts are like clouds and feelings are like clouds that come and go, it's like I suddenly think I'm the clouds that are coming. I said, like I said, what are you? I'm these clouds. I'm this cloud that says this, I'm this feeling that says that. And it's like, I say, you're not the clouds. And then there's great fear. Of course I'm the clouds. What will it be without the clouds? So enlightenment, you could say, is one day, thinking that all these thoughts are drifting past, and all these feelings are drifting past. And one day, you realize you're not the clouds, you're the sky. You're the sky. The sky's always been here, but one was lost in the clouds, and one thought that one was the clouds. Or it could be like, it's like, Hawkins mentions this one, it's like, there's like goldfish in a goldfish bowl, and the goldfish are the thoughts, and your whole life you think you're these little goldfish swimming around in the thing, and then one day, it's like you get a moment and you realise I was the water. I'm not the goldfish swimming around in the little bowl. So, or I use the other metaphor which I enjoy to use. It's like the eyeball. The eyeball. So, if I can, like, now what am I? So the self-inquiry is like, asking the question, what am I, or who am I? So if I can see a green plant, and I'm seeing the green plant out there, am I the green plant, or am I the eye that sees the green plant, the object which is out there? It's a difficult one.
You're the eye.
I'm the eye, good. That's correct. Okay, that's the correct answer. So you'd have to be quite confused if you'd be in a mad world if everybody said I'm the plant, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If everybody said I'm the plant, because the plant, there's lots of plants coming and going, then and lots of feelings coming and going, then actually everybody would be wrong. And Because the plant can be here and the plant cannot be here, but you're still here when you see it come and go.
So I'm not the plant, I'm not the fear.
Yeah, you're not the plant, you're not the fear.
Does that mean that there's two, the I and the self?
I didn't understand.
Oh, because it was just something that I heard, like Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, Eckhart Tolle, yes.
Yeah, so when he had his complete spiritual awakening,
Yes.
he said to him, when he was in such anxiety and pain, he said, I cannot go on with myself.
Yes.
And in that moment he had the realisation that if I cannot live with myself, then there must be two, the I and the self.
Oh yes, okay, I haven't read Eckhart's book. But yeah, that's correct. There is what I call the eternal self, the infinite I, and there is the limited I, the ego I. So I can't live with myself. I mean, the normal identification for over 99% of the planet is the thinking and the passing feelings, and so that's not the true you. You see, so the goldfish, you see, it's like the goldfish was suddenly saying, like, I can't live with this environment any longer. This is too much. And then so, well, the goldfish is not the real you. So if you can let go of the goldfish, you'll still be here. So, yeah, so if my eye can see a plant, I am not a plant. I am that which is observing the plant. So it would be a grave error, just because I've seen plants my whole life, and I think I am a plant. It's a grave error to think I am a plant. And if someone said, like, you're not a plant, and you said no, I'll lose myself if I stop thinking I'm a plant. It's an error, yeah? And the core of who I am is not a plant, you see. You need to have a discovery that the plant is not you. Actually, when you make a discovery that you're not the plant, plants will stop to bother you. When you make a discovery you're not the fear will stop to bother you. When you make a discovery that you're not the pain will stop to bother you, or you'll actually lose it. So, okay, so self-inquiry, or the observer, is the discovery of who I really am, and also the discovery of what I'm not. It's really, really important. So, okay, so if I see a plant, I'm not the plant. Do I observe thoughts coming and going? I do. Something is observing thoughts being here and not being here, and changing and passing. So therefore, it'd be like saying, if the thoughts are the plant that I'm seeing, then am I the thoughts? Or is there something observing the thoughts? What about, suddenly there's fear coming up, and now there's loud fear, and then it's passing. Am I the fear? No. Something is observing the fear, being present and then passing and going. And that which is observing it is not the fear. So what about, so all of these things, so once you do that, so what is hooking in? This is really, really important with self-inquiry, is to realize that when you let go of something, let go of your interest in it, then it essentially disappears. It's not there. Okay, so I share this quite regularly in the meeting. Like, I was here in the meeting some months back, and I was talking, and then I said to everyone, like, can you hear the noise, traffic noise outside on the street? And everyone could hear the noise. And I said to them, because I knew, because a moment before they weren't hearing the noise. So that's a really, really important thing to know, is that when you lose your interest or identification on something, it's not there. So even if it's there, it's not there.
It was I had acupuncture done yesterday.
Yes.
And she's a proper Chinese medicine doctor, so
yes.
she put in 2 points in my temples,
Yes.
and then she added an acupuncture machine and added it to it, and it makes them vibrate.
Yes.
And this side was moving so severely that the whole of my face was moving.
Yes.
And she said, if it doesn't hurt, please, let it do that.
Yes.
And it was really, and I was like, okay, practice focusing on this side. And as I started to focus on this side, I didn't feel it anymore.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, practice going back there again, and it got really bad again. I was like, okay, practice going back to this side again. And it just went away, and then eventually it completely disappeared.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, the brain is so powerful. You know,
Yeah.
what you were talking about, like.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how bad it is. It doesn't matter if it's horrific pain. It doesn't matter if it's a lot of thinking. There is the observer, which is observing without interest. Yeah. And as soon as there's interest, then something becomes loud. And the more interest it is, it can become almost like it's you. Like you could think, I am this pain. I am this thinking. You know, because now there's huge interest. When there is observing without any interest, then it starts to disappear. And in fact, you realize that the ego has been continuing its virtual existence of life just by a feeding of interest into it, and a lot of stories and belief systems around it. So, so there is something here which is observing all thoughts, all feelings, all stories, and it's also, there's an observer here which is observing everything without any interest, is not affected by them. And in fact, if it's pure observer, nothing affects it, you see. It's just the levels of interest in it that are occurring. So, also, quite interesting, it's before thought. You know, you can't, if you try and think about it to get to the observer, it's not actually found, because the observer is observing all thinking. So if you try and think your way to try and find the observer, I'm going to think about how I can find the observer, that's not going to work properly.
Detaching?
Yes. There is something that observes all thoughts without attachment. There is something that observes feelings that arise and pass without attachment. So, and it's been here from birth. It's here now. It'll be here for all eternity. It's the observer that actually observes time passing, but it's beyond time.
Mm.
It observes space, but it's beyond space. It's beyond all stories that started, and will be after all stories that have gone. You see, and it's here right now in this precise moment. Yeah.
It's the essence.
Yes, it's that which is what was discussed before. What is the self? What is the true self? Is the true self these stories? Is the true self this pain is here suddenly? Is that the true self? If you allow all of this stuff to be revealed, is this thinking and all these feelings and all this pain, you know, if you listen to, I mean, if you let it all come up and burp out, yeah.
It's like an empty vacuum.
Yes, and in fact, if you trust it, like, you know, the miraculous happens. If you fully trust it, it'll like rip out all the pain, it'll rip out all the thoughts, and it'll give you intuition and guidance beyond.
It's like being winded, yet being alive within the winded.
Yes, in the beginning it is a lot of wind that comes. There's a lot of winding that happens in the beginning.
Like being burped.
It's like almost, like I experience it now as being a shock. Because as I'm hearing it, when I'm in it, and we were discussing it,
Yeah.
it is everything that you're saying.
Yes.
You've described it as we talked about it, which is complete detachment, yet observation,
Yes.
complete detachment,
That's right.
without thought.
Yes. In the beginning, though, when you first start doing it, there's a lot of wind. There's a lot of wind that comes up, but it does. The windiness does start to settle down after a while. So all kinds of psychosomatic disorders, pains, panic, horror stories. It'll never end. There's no point.
When you're in this place of being the observer?
No, in the beginning when you start practicing it.
And do you get, I've got a bit like a Dot Cotton where I've got every hour, I read something and I've got that hour, it's happening to me. You know,
What's happening to you?
you know, like if I read something about the thyroid, I think, oh, I've got that. That's happening to me now. I've got it. You know, I seem to be taking on everything that I read. I'm like, say there's a new strain of flu. Oh, I'm going to get that. You know, I feel like I'm going to. I don't know if that's my ego doing that.
No, that's the ego. I mean, that's the Course in Miracles segment where you have to cancel these beliefs.
I did it the other day when I thought, I was reading stuff and I thought, I've got it all. So I started cancelling my beliefs in the mirror, and then looking at myself and I cancel my beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's what you were all called earlier, the good stuff. That's a good thing, because I'm shifting. I call it my shifting, because I'm shifting from one thing to another as I grow. As we're letting go, our ego's just trying to hold on, so it grabs the next thing. You know, I finished the peanuts, now I want the Mars bar.
Yeah.
But it's all a good process, because what you're saying is everything's good.
Everything's. I mean, you keep applying the processes, Course in Miracles, the observer, or feeling the feelings, and it'll release layers of the ego. What will eventually you'll understand is the power of thoughts for destruction is quite great if you buy them. So
the ego is so crafty. It's so crafty.
Yeah.
It disguises itself very well. So you can't put, you know, have this feeling because that's comforting. You know, you don't.
It's not really.
No, really, it's a beautiful.
It's what you think. It's
Yeah,
the illusion.
yeah.
I've heard that a lot actually in a lot of stuff that I've listened to, just how it is the illusion. There's so much of what we perceive to be real that isn't real, that's just a veil of an illusion that we buy into because we don't know how to process what's going on. So our ego just takes control because it manages the here and now in a way that we think is real, but it's quite destructive.
Yes, and that you know, for me, which I often share here, is the thing that Ramana said. One of the core mechanisms of the ego. Once you hear this, and if you keep hearing it, you know, everything will start to shift for you. And it describes what addiction is, and actually the fundamental basis of the ego, and actually why it's trying to achieve things all the time. So, if you had, like, I was a food addict, so for example, you know, donuts, you know, you've had the donuts quite a lot, yeah. But, okay, so it'd be like, I'm not feeling that great, but if I go to the supermarket and I buy some donuts, I'm going to feel good, you know, and I'll have some relief, you know. And when I use the word donuts, you can use whatever it is your ego tells you to do. So, you know, sometimes the ego will say, well, if you get a better job, you know, or if you lose weight, or if that person tells you you're great. It doesn't really matter what it is. For me, it might have been, I'm not feeling that great, but the answer to life is to go to a supermarket and buy a donut and eat that donut. And then when I eat that donut, I'm going to be so happy. You know, or in my ego, when I get that job, I'll be so happy. Or whatever it is, you know. So, when I have that thought is like a vibration in my head. I want a donut, I'm not happy right now, I want a donut, I'm not happy right now, get a donut, go to the supermarket. Okay, to get to the supermarket you have to buy a ticket, go in the tube, get to the supermarket, pick up the donut. So I'm planning this out, what I need to do. Eventually when I get this goal, I'll be happy on the end of it. So I do that, you know, in this thing it's like, you need a donut and then you'll be happy. That will sort all of your life out, and this thought is going and I'm planning how to do it and how to get that done. So finally I go to the supermarket, I've planned how I go, the journey, I go there, get to the right, which aisle are the donuts on, okay, get to that. Then I have to give some money, okay, I need to make sure I've got some money with me to pay for the donuts. And then I eat the donuts, and when I eat the donuts, I'm like, for a few seconds, it's like, you know, it's peace, it's like, I'm so happy, you know, and I went through the whole thing. So this is the thing, so this is the mechanism of the ego. It's like actually, as I was planning and thinking that this donut will give me such happiness when I get it, and I do actually get the happiness, you know, I get happiness when I eat that donut, the nice sugary taste. So what's happened there is the ego temporarily shuts up you know, because it was like moaning all along, you know, get the donuts, how to get the donuts, and you feel so happy when you get the donuts. So it's like this, boom, 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 boom. And as soon as you eat the donuts, it just plays dead for a few seconds. It just stays quiet as you're munching away on the donut. And then it's like, it works. My ego was right. You know, going all the way up there and eating those donuts. And when you do eat the donuts, you do feel happy for a few seconds. Yeah? And that happiness was because your ego shuts up for a few seconds, for a few minutes, or for instance for a few weeks. It shuts up because you got the thing. And when it shuts up and it's quiet for a little while, you get a spiritual connection to what was always here. That peace and happiness that you got for a few seconds is like the absence of ego for a little while. But then after a while, because it's very, very crafty, it says you need another donut. Or you need a different type of donut. Or you need to do something totally different.
That implies that the ego wants to access the peace.
But it's an illusion. And it's a faulty mechanism to access the peace. So you need, when you achieve an outcome or do a thing or get a thing or are different, yeah, then you'll get peace. And so it's saying you have to do something in the future or change something or have different circumstances and then you get peace. So you do the thing and it's like it won't leave you alone until you get the thing and then you do feel happy. And it gives you happiness by shutting up for a few seconds or minutes or weeks or whatever it may be. And then it says that's not enough. You need to do something else to get it.
So the key then is to go, I don't need the donut. I'm actually looking at how I feel now. I feel unhappy. I'm feeling unhappy. That's a thought. The thought is I feel unhappy, and the feeling unhappy is not really. I can observe that thought, feeling unhappy, so I become the observer.
Yeah, you can let go. You can go to that which is observing the thought and the feeling. If you go to the observer, then there'll be no hooking into the feeling or story. So it'll be like grace will be allowing it to just start to evaporate.
Or could you cancel your belief in the donut?
You can also, that's of course a miracle, you can cancel belief and just allow the feelings to be, or to go to that which observes the feelings. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because there was a couple of things. The other thing that went on for me was, I'm really going to enjoy the journey of getting to the donut.
That's a thought.
That's right. So then I can...
You can cancel, because obviously, okay, so it's like the ego's got like 300 things it's got programmed with. When you're thinner, then you'll be fine. When you're more successful, then you'll be fine. When you've got a nice home, then you'll be fine. When your parents tell you you're okay, then it's got all of these programs. And it's got like suppressed feelings that will come up, and the chase and the want. And even like, maybe tomorrow I'll be fine.
So what would be the ideal solution then in that situation with a donut?
Okay, well you can apply different tools to it. Like you could apply the Course in Miracles, you can apply the Observer, or you can apply feelings. It's up to you. So, for example, the thought goes, I'm unhappy, I need a donut. Yeah, so if we do the Observer, well, what is observing that thought? Well, what's observing the thought is not thought. So you're out of that. What is observing the feeling of like a craving? What is observing the craving is not craved for a donut. So then it's like it dissipates. It's like you let the air out of it. It's like you busted the illusion. So the things. So you go.
Say that again, slower for me.
Yeah. So there's a thought, I want a donut. It suddenly comes in, and I'm hungry for a donut. Yeah?
Yep.
So that's actually what's going on. So I might ask myself, what is observing that thought? So something is observing the thought, which is not thought. Okay?
Something's observing the thought,
Which is not.
which is not the thought. So it's not the thought. It's not my thought, the donut.
So it's a
observing
consciousness, just the consciousness that just exists.
Yes.
That is everything. That is all that we are. It's
So
just
I'm
this.
conscious I'm observing the thought of the donut now. Is that what you mean?
Well, there's not, because we're talking about it now. So that which observes thoughts is not thoughts.
Okay, that makes
Infinite
sense.
intelligence.
Pardon?
Infinite intelligence.
Yeah,
Because
that's
we're
always-
talking about it makes a difference.
Yeah. Infinite intelligence. Okay, so this is probably an ideal place to go into the practical. Shall we go into practical, or do you want to talk about it a bit more?
Yeah.
I can talk about it a bit more.
Yeah, practical.
Let's go to the practical. Okay, so, okay, does anyone want to volunteer? You volunteer? Okay, good. Okay, so, is there any, well, we have to just check right now. Are there any thoughts going on?
I mean, every time I come here, no.
No, okay. Okay, that's fine. We won't ask you, I won't have you as an example because I don't want you
I'll
to
have
give
a
you.
go.
You want to have a go, okay, good. Okay, now, okay, are there thoughts going on?
Yes.
Oh, good, 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 good. Okay, there's thoughts going on. Okay, so there's lots of thoughts going on, yeah? So that's fine. And then, are they like going really, really rapidly in a big story? Going,
Big story.
big story, okay. Lots of thoughts going on, that's fine. So, thoughts, they change, don't they? There's one thought going on, now it's a different thought. Now it's a different thought, yeah? Because it's not the same thought. Because you would get bored of the same thought, wouldn't you? So there's all these thoughts are changing. And there's the same little stories. So you could say it's a little bit like, imagine someone put a TV on in front of you, yeah? And the TV was your thoughts. Now, there is something, just because there's a lot of thoughts on the TV, a lot of stories on the TV, something is observing the TV, which is not the TV. Yeah? So that's fine, let the thoughts come and go. But there's something here which is not the thoughts, which actually observes the thoughts coming and going, which is not the thoughts. Yeah? So that's fine. So there is an observation of thoughts, which is not the thinking. And it's fine if the thinking is going, but these thoughts, that's fine, let the thoughts be there. Just like if there was a TV set in front of you. Fine, fine. Lots of things going on in front of it. But something is watching the thoughts, which is not thought. Something is witnessing the thoughts, which is not thinking. So, can you go to that which is observing thoughts, which is not thoughts? I mean, the thoughts can be there, just like I can observe a camera. I'm observing a camera in front of me, but actually I'm not a camera, you see. I mean, yes, it's true, there's a camera in front of me, but I'm not the camera. There is like a silent observation of the camera, yeah? That's fine. There are thoughts, bloop, 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 bloop. But there's something which watches the thoughts, which is not thoughts, yeah? It's not the thinking, so can you be that which is silently watching or observing the thought, but it's not a thought?
Well, to me that would be God, or infinite intelligence.
Okay, that's a thought.
Is it? Okay.
That's a thought. So you're trying to
rationalise.
You're trying to rationalise it, which is fine. So the rationalisation about it is also thinking. Okay. So to try and put a label on it or to describe it is also part of the thinking. So let's say, like, the observer observes even pictures. Yes, it observes all thoughts and thinkingness, and even like image making. So you could make an image of a book in your head, but there's something that's observing that image, which is not the image. And you could start thinking about things, but something's observing the thinking, which is not the thinking. You see. Now something might try and label what's observing, but also that's being observed. So all of this is coming and going, but there is something which is observing it, which is not the coming and going.
Isn't that just an endless loop then? Because you're just, that which is being observed by something else, which is being observed by something else.
That's thinking.
Is it thinking?
Yeah, that's called thinking. So now there's trying to rationalise what the process is. So that rationalising, or that thinking about what it is and how it can't work, all of those are thoughts.
Okay.
I mean, it's very, very simple, they're just thoughts or images. But something is here which is observing thoughts, yeah?
All thoughts are being observed. So there's no thoughts. The observer is no thoughts.
Yes, the observer is not thought. Like if I see a red pillow, is the observer also a red pillow? No. What is observing the red pillow is not a red pillow. Yeah. And if the red pillow, so what observes thoughts is not a thought. Thoughts come and go, but it observes all the thoughts. So if I was in let's imagine a cinema theatre, yeah, and there's the projector, and then there's the screen, yeah.
I'm observing you, I'm thinking about myself observing you, I'm also observing those thoughts.
So,
why do, again, rational thinking, why do we need to have a concept understanding of that which is being observed silently?
well, I mean, ideally it doesn't require thinking. The thinking is just like a guidepost. But again, that's a thought. That's also thinking. So it's like going up to the, it's like we're talking about something which is not thought. So by thinking about it, you're not going to get to the answer. Yeah.
It's grace.
Yes, it is grace. See, grace. Okay, grace. Let's do another way. What's always been here, and things have come and have come before, but it is the thing that has always been here and will always be here, and is the truth. And everything else is coming and going, or is built up on top of it, but it's here. So, if there was a baby, and then we gave it lots of feelings and taught it how to suppress its feelings, it might think that it's thinking all these dark feelings. But there was something here, and it's still here, even though you might get lost in all of the fog. That is not your, So as this thinking, like, let me try and understand it, or let me try and explain it, or find the right word for it. So all of these thoughts are going on, and the thoughts are trying to think about trying to understand it. But to try and think to understand it you're not going to experience it. Yeah. So that's fine, and then but I need to understand it. Well, why are we talking about it? Well, and talking about it is not it as well.
So it's a bit like the silence between the words.
I would say it's the silence that watches all the words, but is not the words.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is a silence. So like a baby, yeah. Baby. Let's say the baby is silent and present, and totally in the moment. Okay. Then it suddenly, for some reason, it learns to think. Okay. And then I say to the baby, and now when I talk to the baby, it says, "I am this thinking. This thinking is me." Saying this thinking is not you. And then the baby says, "Well, let me think about it and try and understand that." Trying to understand that is not you. You see. So you are here, and your truth is always here, and the thinking is not you. Yeah?
The beauty of grace is present.
Yes. What is present, and what is all the rubbish that you think you are, and which is not you? So all this thinking, blah, 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 and let me try and understand it. All of this stuff. There is something here that is not that.
I suddenly had a moment of well, what's left?
Exactly.
That's a thought.
But it's true, it's a great description of it, because what's left is, that's beauty.
Yeah.
Presence.
I just
Okay.
suddenly had that moment of
Wow.
yeah,
Okay, so you had an experience.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, good, yeah. So that's like.
So, which implies that I'm wanting to hold on.
You're wanting to hold on to the rubbish and believe it's you, yeah. And you're hooked into the rubbish. So, which is the wind that needs to come out and be released. It's total illusion. It's total illusion. If you buy the illusion, I mean, of course, it's not nice, but it's not you. It's safe to let it go. as all the wind burps out, it's safe to let it go because it's not you. That's why I say, you know, like someone was sharing, like, you know, that's me, that's my core will be taken out of me. That's not your core. All this noise is not your core. Yeah.
And part of the wind is the words.
The wind is the words. The words are not you. It's one great traps, and you know, that's a nice word. Grace will take care of you when you burp out all the rubbish. You know, grace is intuitive, and it knows. It doesn't need. You know, you don't need to tell grace, you know, what's going to happen in 3 years' time. It, you know, it's far more intelligent than that.
But the more that you do the lessons, and this is what my experience now,
Yes.
the more that you do the lessons, the more in tune you get.
Yes.
You do. I'm starting to realise, you know, slowly, even though I'm still getting hanging on to the, I don't know, the rubbish that goes along with doing the course, and you know, you're hanging on to this and hanging on to that, and I feel like my cage has been rattled, you know, all the time. But like today in the kitchen when I was having that meltdown, then I looked out the window and said, "Please God," and then it was just like me observing my actions and what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
And it was just like I was, and I didn't want to ruin the day, and it didn't ruin the day because I just observed it, and then everything calmed down. It was like I was spinning like that, and then it just stopped. You know, it was really strange, really strange feeling.
Thank you. That's great. That's just what we needed to hear. So as you observed it, it's like all the rubbish eventually died.
Yeah,
and left you.
I couldn't believe it, and it was really quick.
Yeah.
Because I said, "Please God," you know, and everything, it just went all in slow motion, and I just thought, and I was trying to cry and have this tantrum, and it just stopped.
Yes. That's beautiful. Thank you.
I'm so jealous.
It's only
She's sharing her experience with you.
No, of course.
No,
of course.
But it's only
Little joke.
I'm on 19, less than 19, so I've only been doing it for 19 days, you know, and not perfectly, you know, but I've been doing it. So when I've got little heart noise that goes when the lesson's ready, so I'll hear it go off, even at work. So I just stop what I'm doing and do the lesson to the best of my ability. I don't even know if I'm doing it right, but I'm giving it my 100%. And then I just let it go. And sometimes I don't understand what I'm doing, but I just do it. You know, I read the words and do it. You know, and this is my experience today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that there's something.
So that I'm so happy you shared that, and that's the thing of facing your illusions. Eventually, once you experience the observer, you know it's true, and you know you're safe, and it will, you know. And in fact, the observer is one of the fastest ways to let go of all the wind. You see, because it's no resistance and no engagement in false identifications that this thinking is important. That these feelings need to be thought about or let go. I mean, it's like it's actually, you could say on a spiritual level, it's like surrendering the ego. It's having absolutely zero. You're giving it zero power to be you.
Total disbelief on having that.
Yes, it's 100%. The observer's 100% disbelief in the ego.
It's so powerful though, because you do identify with it so strongly and so profoundly that you do think it's you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the analogy of the noise outside, you see. That's what I wanted to share today, because most people think the ego is so dominant and so loud. I am the ego, you know. And actually, something is observing the ego, and actually the ego is the same thing as the traffic noise outside. Like, if you were listening to me, you'd not hear the traffic noise. If I suddenly tell you there's someone like talking outside, you hear it. But the same thing is with your ego. Just because you've been actively listening to it your whole life, and you have an idea that I am that, it is like an illusion, you see. So you need someone to say that, you know. And you know, we've got someone here who shared it. We've got more than one person who experienced the observer here. So it's not you. And in fact, when you're in that place, it's like radical surrender of the ego. It's like grace will actually deal with feelings and thoughts in the most miraculous way. And you had an experience of that just now. It's like when the truth is spoken, the ego starts to run out of options. So it's just like so all of these thoughts, and they might be thinking about what's being said here, but all that that's like a story. That's like the stuff on the screen. But something is like observing that, which is not that. And something might try and think, but the answer is not there. So you could say it's like these thoughts are like this. It's like a wave of stuff going on, yeah? And then something is trying to understand what's going on, but that's also part of the wave. So it's not in the waves, but there's something here which observes the waves, which is detached, which has no interest in the waves, and it's not a wave. So let the waves be there. Okay, if there's waves, that's fine. Let the waves be there. But what is there's something observing all of these thoughts that are going on, which is not thoughts.
The grace.
So what's your experience? So all these thoughts. Okay, so there's thoughts going on. Okay, now can you go to that which is observing the thoughts, which is not the thoughts?
Mm-hmm. But it takes on my form, this other.
Okay, what is it? So go to that. Describe.
Well, it's just me duplicated. So it's probably a duplication of my ego trying to work it out.
Okay, so there's working out starting to happen, and there's image making, yeah? Mm. So there's thoughts, and now there's image making, but all of these are thoughts and images, okay? And the ego is creating more thoughts and images. Mm. So all of that is like part of the waves. And there is something which is observing all of that, which is not that's going on. Images are being made, thinking about what to do is being made. But that's all being silently observed, without attachment. So can you go to that?
Well, it's just it's kind of intangible, it's not...
Okay, good. So are you experiencing the intangible now?
Yeah, it's just like everything that isn't... It's like an unseen.
Okay. Are you there? Are you experiencing the unseen?
Sure.
Okay. So right now, do you have a problem right now?
No, because I'm focusing on trying to...
Okay, I'm focusing, yeah. So I'm focusing means I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the thinking is trying to focus, yeah? So all of that is part of the thinkingness and the image making and the trying to do something, yeah? That's fine. But all of this, there's something here which is observing without any interest and without any effort. So all of that stuff can happen, and let all that stuff happen. But something watches or is observed. It's here right now. It's always been here. Yeah.
Does it help if she doesn't attach to your words?
Yes. Yeah, you can not attach to my words. Even though there's speaking happening, you don't have to intellectualize what I'm saying to you, but you pick it up, because the words aren't important.
I think I'm still trying to work it out, intellectualize it, where my head's going is to that which existed before I existed.
Okay, so you're trying to work it out
and
understand it.
Yeah, like you say, attaching to the words, I'm trying to think, well, if something's observing, then it must have a form.
Okay, yeah, so all of that is part of the thinking and image making which is going on, which is all part of the thinking and then making images and trying to work it out, kind of thing. You know, there's been times, we're talking, but it was trying to connect to something, but it's beyond the words that we're talking. There's been times when there's been like peace and there's been no thinking, yeah? Even for a moment, meditating like stillness. and then there's thinking. So there is something here which exists, and then there's thoughts that can come and go, and lots of thinking and image making and working out. So this is like stuff which comes and goes, this thinking and these image making and working things out. And even the effort of trying to figure things out, that's also part of it. But there's something here that is just silently observing all of this stuff. You don't even have to work out my words, and you don't have to, and you can even let all these thoughts and images go, but it's just silent. It takes no effort, it takes no time, it takes no thinking, it takes no images, but it silently watches everything, and it's here right now.
Mike Guster wants to attach to I had one moment about a year and a half ago when it was like I was driving one day, and it was after I came out of all of the madness, and for about 15 seconds there was just silence.
Okay.
There was just silence in my head, and it was so silent and quiet, nothingness, that I became aware of it. I suddenly became aware of it, and it was just like a flatline silence.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Okay, so that 15 seconds of silence, I mean, the only thing that stops the silence going on, and thoughts can come, but there's no interest in them, is that you became interested in the thought. And that's all that happened. When you experience the silence, the only thing that happens is you get hooked into a thought, and then you think you are the thoughts with interest, and then you lose the silence which was never lost, you see. So that silence is here right now, because you've experienced it. Now I know. So you've had 15 seconds of silence. So that silence is here right now. Now, all these thoughts which are going on and trying to work it out and trying to make images and trying to understand it, let that happen. Let that be here. Let the thinking happen. But that silence is still here. You see, the silence is here, and now there is interest in the thinking, and there is interest in thinking, so it seems like the thinking is me. Yeah? But actually, that silence is still here. Yeah? So let the thoughts be here, but there is silence here as well. Yeah? Just one more minute with her. So, are you experiencing the silence which is here, which is not the thoughts?
The thoughts are more scrambled now. They're not.
Okay, so that's good. So there's silence here which is not the thoughts. That silence which was here for 15 seconds is still here. And those thoughts can still be here. The silence is also here as well. It didn't go anywhere. That silence is here. You're not experiencing the silence. Okay, there's thoughts here. That silence is also here. It never left you.
Kind of like I'm in my head's kind of gone into a bit of no man's land at the moment. It's because the thoughts that were going through it, the repetitive cycle.
Yeah.
Oh, they've come back in again. Because I've mentioned them. they were losing.
They're losing their grip.
They were, and there was more. There was more silence. Calm. There was nothing.
There was nothing. You got the nothing, did you?
I kind of got to the nothingness, but I was still there was still a bit going on that was a bit frightened of the nothingness.
Well, that's pretty good. I think you got very close. So the stillness is here, and just me saying that, affirming it, you started to break the spell of the thought. As soon as, now that's what happens. When you had that 15 seconds of silence, I mean that silence is still here, but as soon as you become interested in a thought and give it a lot of interest, boom, the silence it seems like the silence disappeared. Silence didn't disappear. You're now into the stories again. And it seems like the silence was something that's gone now. And you are the stories. And that's what you experience now. So that's why I said the silence is still here. All belief systems is that, you know, like in science, like if you give the virus to like 100 people, like some people just will not get it. They just don't believe it. They haven't got the belief system, you know. Also, what is the placebo effect? You know, you've got the most horrific illness on the planet. You know, you've got 0 survival rate, but there's a new drug, and this drug can kill you. You give a sugar-coated pill to like 100 people, like 30% of them will cure. You know, but you know, so actually, you know, all the things, you know, my goodness, this is impossible. If you believe that, it can actually manifest physical illnesses, problems, things, and if you let them go, you know, physical illnesses, addictions, all kinds of things just leave you. You know, as you connect to that spiritual field, all the illusions start breaking down, you know, when you're in there. So you know, like going from 13 medications to 1, been discharged from, just doing the simple things I've been talking about in this group, being discharged from the asthma clinic, going off the gout medication, not having gout attacks. Because these are just thoughts. As you let go of the thoughts and negative feelings, these things start to disappear. But so I cancel my belief in cancer, for example, or I cancel my belief, you know, I can never get better, you know, or I cancel my belief, you know, I'm an infinite being. The observer is infinite. When you're in the observer, it's infinite being. I don't know if that makes sense. There is being, presence, without any limitation. As soon as you hook into thoughts, you're in the world of the limited. As soon as you identify, oh, there's a negative feeling, I am the negative feeling, you're in the limited. But you're not. You're an infinite being. You're pure silence. You're pure stillness beyond all limits, beyond all fear, beyond all limitation. If you've ever experienced it, then you know that that's truth. You're an infinite being. You're pure presence without any limitation. You're always that. And everything that comes on is just like, you know, passing, changing stuff. It's not real. So now as you cancel the belief, they start to disappear, the things you're hooking into. You can check it out through kinesiology. If you check out, you know, I cancel, you know, you'll find that your muscle strength will go strong, because that's not the essence of who you are. You're not like, you're not a weak, limited body that will die. That's not the truth of who you are. You're not this thinking, this negative thinking. That's not the truth of who you are. That stuff will make you go weak, you know. You know, I'm limited, you know, I'm frail, I'm negative. That's not the truth of your essence. So I've had so many miracles, and people in this group have had miracles, just cancelling beliefs. Things start to shift out of them. So there's 3. You can do it in either of 2 segments. Another thing is, like recently, you know, I just share these stories because they're experience, so I can share them in the room. Like my mother, who's a food addict, diabetic, horrific illnesses, she went to the doctor and her legs were swelling up with edema, and doctor said there's nothing we can do for you because of your heart attack, because of your heart condition. So I used the lesson 14. God did not create edema in my mother, so it's not real. Because the doctor said to her, you know, rather than just give her a pill and say this will work, they just said, no, there's nothing we can do. So I used that, and within 2 days, she told me her swelling was going down, and within 1 week it was gone. It hasn't come back since. And I started doing it. I had the intuition just to do it. So there's enormous power in these lessons, more than you can imagine. But hooking into negative thoughts, you must cancel the thought. Don't keep buying the thoughts. They're all. As soon as you buy them, you're entrapped by them, and they have the power to have negative consequences on that. And there will be wobbles, because the ego will sometimes come back with a huge, you know, tantrum.
Oh, it was really awful in the first few weeks.
Yeah.
running.
And there can be like shaky grounds, and ego going, what are you doing? You know, look, you know, and then things go wrong. You go, look, I told you things are going wrong, but you're thinking even more. And
Every Saturday I ended up back here. There you go. Don't know why.
Yeah, so that's at a certain point grace grabs you beyond your ego. Yeah. In 12 steps that happens. People say they wake up, I don't want to go to a meeting, I'm not going to a meeting, and they end up in a meeting, you know. And they often share in the meetings like, you know, my feet brought me here, is what they say. So at a certain point, in the beginning you're quite wobbly because the ego can take you out and not bring you back. But at a certain point, like something starts to, which is not your thinking, drags you to where it can, you know, burp out all the limitation you've been hooking into, all the illusions. All the wind needs to be like burped out and comes out of you.
What I do find is that I can't be around mania. Anyone that's noisy, anyone that's, you know, I just can't do it anymore. I just want to be, you know, quiet.
So you're getting very advanced now. So in the beginning, the ego loves drama, loves excitement, loves like being important, loves accumulating things and objects and all of that stuff. And actually there is the lower you go down into the levels of ego, it's actually attracted to destruction and self-harm. So it chooses people, places, situations and careers which are destructive. So then you're in the lower levels. It's like a grip. You're in energy fields, you're tuned into different vibrations. So at the lower levels, it's very, very dark. And the ego says, oh, I like that person, but they end up being a really dark person. That's why you like them, you see. You know, I like that career, but it ends to be, you know, like, I was you know, in the end, I was working in the stock market, where I was just surrounded by addicts who were totally nuts, you know, with dishonesty and all kinds of things. But, you know, if someone said to me, like, be a yoga teacher, at that point when I was resonating with that much thoughts and that much ego running around, I go, oh, that's so horrible. So boring. What would you be doing? You know, that's like, no, the glamour, you know, I'm going to be so important and all that stuff. And the people, you know, if you saw a nice person, that's so what? They're so boring, you know. What about that person? They look, and they're total nutcases. So it's like, that's the secret. So eventually, as you become more into the observer and the stillness, suddenly the attractions are like to peaceful, still, harmonious, loving type things. So you become reversed. And things which are life-supporting, because you're resonating with the truth now, it's the authenticity. That silence and that stillness loves things which are silent and still and nourishing. But the ego loves the things which it's got a secret attraction to the darkness and is actually repulsed. So like often when people who are really ill go to spiritual meetings, they find it like, you know, I never want to come back here again. You know, they're trying to do something else. But actually, if you keep coming back, then you start to lose. And often people in spiritual environments will start to change their friends' careers, type of people they date. All of that starts to, the type of way they eat their food. You know, it's like 100% reversal eventually. It's like, oh, I want to do something peaceful and still and something loving and, you know, kind of kind without too, you know. Someone said, no, I need to do 3 billion things today and I'm going to do this prestigious thing and then that, you know, and it's like, I'm going to meet that person because they're so exciting and and it's really destruction, it's a secret attraction to destruction.
And people notice it, my daughter noticed it, she said to me the other day, she just got into bed with me and she said, Mum, have the angels taken you to God? And I said, why? Because she keeps walking in on me praying and I don't not. And I said, why, do you think so? And she said, yeah, you're really peaceful and it's lovely and you're lovely to be around now. You're not manic like you used to be and you don't shout anymore.
Yes.
You know, and it's really, the people that I love, I'm having a really loving relationship with them. You know, where before it was all about me and what was going to happen next. And now it's just this peacefulness and this overall of love.
Yes.
Love, love, love. You know, and I've never experienced that before because I've been so in myself because it was a defence mechanism.
Yes.
Once it's up, you know. And now it's starting to come down and it's just go with the flow. It is what it is. It's not running, you know. And I've never been like that. And so that's where it's really awesome. But at the moment, because it's early days, hand in hand goes the pain. The pain comes. but the pain makes me feel alive sometimes, but sometimes it's awful. You know.
Yeah.
But
It's wind, it'll pass.
it's wind, yeah, it's wind, and my belief, my faith is unshakable.
Yes, you know, grace has grabbed you. It's kind of obvious, and it's shaking out the wind.
It's a beautiful word to use. Grace.
Yeah,
Like,
grace is yeah.
That silence is grace. That silence is your truth. That silence is here now. This static, you know, that you claimed was your core, is not you. So silence is here now. Silence is actually here right now. Grace is with you right now. But for some people who are hooked into the stories and the feelings, they are not aware of it, even though grace is still here.
So in the early days, how can you unhook quickly then to stop, get a bit of relief?
Well, for me, what's really useful is to have groups and people who can support you in the beginning, and a program of action, like in 12 steps, or the 12 steps. With the Course in Miracles, there's 365 lessons, and meeting up and speaking to people who are doing the course. Just like in 12 steps, you'd go to groups where people have worked the 12 steps, and you'd have someone to support you. With the Course in Miracles, I mean, just grabbing a 12-step book on your own at home isn't optimum. You need the energy support of people who've gone and can share their experience. And then you do actually get it. If you keep going back long enough, you start to get it, even if it makes no sense to you in the beginning.
And that's what I found in the beginning. I didn't know what I was doing. I sort of felt like I was feeling my way in the blind, you know.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing self-inquiry the first time and cancelling beliefs. And I just thought, I don't know what they're doing, but I'm going to do it because I like the energy in the room.
Yeah.
And I was looking at everyone's faces, and it was just like pure. Oh, I just want what they've got.
Yeah.
I want it. I'm
Yeah.
buying into this. I want it. So fake it to make it, as all the old sayings go. But now I'm starting to get it in very little bits, you know, but it's getting more.
Yes.
The premise at the very beginning of the Course of Miracles.
Yes.
Are
you familiar with it?
I've been listening to it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And you know what it says, that which exists.
Yes, that which, what is it? I've forgotten it. Yeah, do you remember it? That which, it's an illusion, isn't it? It's not
that
real.
Which exists is real, and
That which
therein lies the truth of God, isn't it?
Yeah, it is something like that.
Because they were saying, it was the very first thing she wrote, I think.
I do remember. I mean,
nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists, herein lies the peace of God. They were saying, I was listening, it was like a documentary on it,
yes.
and the guy was saying that, you know, that's the whole, basically what the whole Course of Miracles is about. And he said, if you don't believe that, then it goes on to tell you in the next 1,500 pages the same thing, but it explains it.
Well, and the lessons tell you how to actually practically let go. Okay. So the stillness is truth. And when you get lost in thinking and form and ideas and the future and the past, this is not real. But by engaging in it, then you lose the experience of the real. Does that make sense? It makes sense.
So the unreal, nothing unreal exists, as the thought processes are unreal?
They're unreal, yeah. You know, this is something that we just, a temporary drama that you're getting hooked up into. Suddenly you imagine like you're in a Disney film. That's not real. You know, you're in a Disney film and there's a dragon chasing you. And you say, well, I imagined it, so it's real. No, it's not real. It's a cloud. You know, that's a cloud. That's not real. That will pass and eventually be nothing. But that's not. That's an illusion. So find the truth now. Then you can live with illusions about you, but you don't get hooked into them, and they don't harm you. So
that's why I'm glad I've become spiritual and not just organised religion. It's like this, you must do this. I've discovered the 12 steps, that led me to another fellowship and led me to here. You know, and I feel like I'm getting more connection with God doing this than I have done being religious. You know?
Yes, yeah. So
I feel more connected now than I ever had in my life.
Yes. Yeah. The truth sets you free.
The guru helps though.
You know, beliefs are so powerful if you believe them. You know, once you purchase a thought, it seems to be real. So, I shared it before, cancelling of beliefs. This is stemming out of Lesson 14 from A Course in Miracles. Lesson 14 from A Course in Miracles said, along the lines of, God did not create cancer, so it's not real. God did not create war, so it's not real. Hawkins used the phrase, I cancel my belief in cancer. I'm an infinite being subject only to what I hold in mind. Now, if you purchase a thought like, I'm going to get cancer, that is so powerful, you know, and that can actually manifest cancer. If you clear the thought, you probably will understand this, or you may not. Anyway, so I'm going to explain something. Anyway, I like to talk about the Heisenberg principle. The Heisenberg, so in science tends to think in Newtonian causality, which is that, somebody sneezed on me and that's why I've got a cold. So that's like things out there are making me thin, things all on the outside. So when we're going to the observer, we realize that actually nothing out there affects you. You're not a victim. This is another lesson in the Course in Miracles. I'm not a victim of the world I see. Yeah, nothing. I'm not a victim of anything out there. But if I purchase a belief, then I become subject to that belief. Okay. So if I let go of the belief, it can't happen. It doesn't happen. If I hold a belief, it can materialize. So that's how strong beliefs are. So as soon as for example, Hawkins had about 20 illnesses. He cancelled his belief syndrome and did the Course in Miracles, which is a segmented way of letting go of all your belief systems. And about 20 illnesses left him. And since I had absolute faith in him, I did that. And I had kidney failure, I had gout, I had asthma, and miracles happened, and I don't have the symptoms of all of those today. So these occur as you hold thoughts in mind. As you hold thoughts in mind and keep holding them, and it's even good if you hold some fear around them, then they create stuff. As soon as you cancel the beliefs and let go of the energy, then they start, usually, I mean, it's up to God's will, but often they just disappear, you know. So you're just taking out. So Heisenberg said, and this broke a lot of the old paradigm of science, that if a scientist observes something, the phenomena actually change just by the scientist observing it. So particles actually change when a scientist is observing the particles. The particles change just by them observing it. That's so radical. That means that most of the world today believe that things happen because this affects that. You know? Yeah? Does that make sense? But actually, what the Heisenberg principle showed, which is the doorway to scientifically explain spirituality, not much, is that just by observing phenomena, the phenomena change. But that's a scientist. If a scientist is calibrating around 400 generally, but what if you got someone calibrating at 1,000 observing phenomena? What if you had Christ observing phenomena? What if you're working 12 steps and surrendering to connect to a higher power? Then that which is beyond science, you know, alcoholism, drug addiction, food addiction stops. But if you connect to the observer, even with Course in Miracles, even physical illnesses start to disappear. And that's because it's not, the ego thinks that the world affects and creates. No, it's what's the thoughts which are being held in mind, which are creating what you're living in. If you believe that you can't catch cancer, you can't have cancer, you won't have cancer. If you read a lot of newspapers like cancer is spreading, and then sort of see it and go, I'm going to get cancer, then you do, see? So the thoughts, once you reverse it, the Course in Miracles will reverse what I would say is the insane, and yet everyone believes it, is that you're a victim of the world, and your beliefs, the beliefs that the collective believe, are real. When that red thing is on, I switch it off for a lot of it, but it means, okay, thanks for that question. Do you practice it, or is it, what was it? Do you practice it, or do you live it? The Course in Miracles, okay, we're talking about the Course in Miracles. I do another thing called self-inquiry, which is slightly different to that. The Course in Miracles is 365 lessons. You do one lesson a day. We will be doing, I think, lesson 16 today. So, in the beginning, there seems to be a me centered around identification with thoughts and the body, usually, that is doing actions, which are doing like you pick up lesson 1 for today, and it tells you to do certain things with it, like it might say, for example, all my thoughts are meaningless, you see, and it might tell you to look around the room and say, that cushion is as meaningless as the light bulb, which is as meaningless as the chair, you see. So that seems to be the practice. And there's 365 lessons, you used to do a lesson a day. And about living it, well, the funny thing is that the practice is to let go of the identification with certain belief systems, primarily thinkingness, and one of the primary thoughts, which the Course does go on in late, because it's quite a scary thought, the letting go of the thought, I am the body. So as to get to, which is one of the core belief systems of most people on the planet, but it's a thought, and as you let go of layers of thoughts, what happens is automatically you are being something different to after you've done it. So please ask if that doesn't make sense. So it's a program, you could, using words, you'd say it's a program of surrendering the ego. So the practice, you have exercises to do. So it seems like the ego, or me, I, but the Course is letting go of the idea of what is I as well. That's starting to diminish as you let go of all the belief systems. Like, I'm this person, I'm this body, I'm so tall, I'm a male, so I'm an author, all of those things. Those are all thoughts. So you just, through doing the Course, which is just a practice, like my thoughts are meaningless, or my thoughts are as meaningless as a carpet on the floor, for example. You're doing those things, and they're dismantling. Also, there's certain, each lesson is different. Some of the lessons are quite similar, but in different chunks of the book, the lessons go on to different levels of dismantling the ego, and also what is perceived through the ego. So let's make it very, very simple. Yeah. So let's say, for example, and this is too simplistic, but we might as well start with the simplistic one. Let's say that I've got, before I start the Course in Miracles, I've got 100 dominant thoughts, which I believe. I'm the body, I'm a man, it's a competitive world, you've got to survive, whatever it is, So these are the 100 thoughts. So, and someone's telling me you need to practice the Course in Miracles. Now, let's say I do the lessons on a daily basis, and by doing the lessons, actually, you could say either my beliefs are starting to weaken, these dominant thoughts which are being held with great interest in the consciousness, and then eventually some of them leave, like things that used to be dominant thoughts are gone. So actually, you're actually no longer that which you were before, you see. So it's like you're connecting to something beyond thought. With each thought you let go of, you become something totally different, and something else is more in the driving seat than what was there before. So that is like what we'd call more a case of spirit going towards greater and greater levels of expansion and spiritual being. So spiritual being is different because in the beginning it's like the ego. What I mean by the ego is like in the beginning it's like, well, I might as well go off into my story. Please do ask questions if something's not clear or you want expansion on anything. Is that, so I mean this might be useful as well. You know, I primarily, I'm a recovered now food addict, 7 years abstinent from that through working a 12-step fellowship on that. But I was in the food many years ago. I was in workaholism. I was in addiction. So if you had asked me, who are you? I'd have said, well, I'm me. You know, I'm a man. I'm 30 years old at that time. You know, I have a career in the stock market. So I'd have given you all these ideas about what I thought I was. Yeah, like I'm a 30-year-old man. That's a belief. I have a career in the stock market, you know, I'm this physical body, you know, and so it's like all of those beliefs, some of these belief systems are coming from childhood and from school and from what my parents have told me and from going to and watching and going to school. Then I got another layer of beliefs, like you've got to be successful, you've got to achieve, you've got to have money. It's a competitive world. So all of these thoughts were like dominating all of my actions. Like I was like, you could say as a baby, I had no software. There was no programming. I was just like pure being. So oh yeah, this is a good way. So if you see a baby, like I look at babies on the tube, they haven't got, it's like they haven't yet got the thoughts. They're just purely present. So you could say that, because it's the difference between practicing and living. So you could say that they're fully alive, they're fully present, they're fully being. Yeah? And then someone tells them you've got to be successful, you see. And now it's like the operating software of the ego is starting to run the show, seemingly. And it needs to practice things and do things and achieve things to get somewhere. Yes? So the Course in Miracles, and even also 12-step groups, are like dismantling all those thoughts so that we're going back to a kind of like baby state, but also connected to divine intuition as well. So directly connected to the source. So it's like one is now, you could say now one is now living free of the limiting ideas that one had taken on board throughout life. So you're practicing, and each time you do it and you weaken beliefs, and I'll be talking a little bit later on about you need to also feel feelings without using in any way. As soon as you do that, you're going more into the living. Okay, so I'm not explaining that really, really good, but it's like if you do the lessons, I'm making it too simplistic, like if you do the lessons for a few days, like you started off with 100 dominant thoughts, now you've got like 98 thoughts, you see. So it's like that thing that was running your life into the future, we're talking future and past, and trying to think and organize and control everything, is actually now a little bit more diminished, and now it's like something else is starting to influence, which is not from that realm of all the thoughts going along. And as you do it, it's very, very gradual. As you surrender these different ideas and these different beliefs, it's like you realize there's more stillness, there's more peace, there's like an intuitive knowing of what to do and how to do it and what to do, and there's less and less concern and fear of the future or what happened in the past. So all of that is going. So that's like, I would say that's the true life, free of the thing which I call the ego, which was like, seemingly was in charge. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it,
I remember when I first started coming here,
Yeah.
and I was in pain, and I kept saying, I'm in pain, I don't like it, and I didn't understand what was going on.
Yes.
And I remember sharing it, going, I just don't like this thing, I'm not scared, but I'm in discomfort, and everything, everything's not right, and people were going, yeah, That's really good, you know. And I'm like, what does it mean? And they just said, keep coming and keep doing the lessons. So I've been carrying on doing the lessons, and now some of them I don't understand, but I just do them. I keep doing them.
Yes.
And I'm getting more glimpses of the peace. You know, where the head was noisy before, it goes quiet. You know, and I'm more in the present moment, starting to notice it a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's like you're doing something, you're doing the lessons on a daily basis, but you're actually doing something to let go of the doing,
Yeah.
so that you can be being and present, and be connected to a level of peace that wasn't there. So you're kind of like deleting the operating software through doing the course, and then there becomes much more peace, much more. In the beginning, it's like there's a lot of stuff that has to come out, you know, all kinds of feelings and thoughts.
I've been bonkers. And luckily we talk to each other a lot, so I go bonkers here, you know, and wow, you know. But it's because something's being shaken inside, isn't it?
Yes, it's a very good sign.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a very, very good sign.
It's not nice being in the sign.
No.
But you know, I know. I'm not going to go backwards. I'm going to go forward.
Yes, this would be like if you had like a lot of rubbish in you,
Oh,
you can get
really bad belief systems that ruled me. You know,
yeah.
really ruled me.
I suppose it's like it's been likened to me like stirring up the murky waters. And when you take a big stick and you stir it all up, there's going to be a lot of time it takes to settle,
Yeah.
and in that process, all the muck comes up,
Yeah.
and all of the dregs that you've kind of been pushing down, and that have been weighing you down as well.
That's right.
Until you get to the more the purity of how you're meant to be, the authentic self.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah, yeah.
Authentic self rather than the ego-driven self.
That's right. Yeah, we're going towards the authentic self. So it's like in the beginning, the ego is doing a practice, but it's doing the practice to let go of itself, so that you can get back to the authentic self. So it'd be like if there was a lot of, I'm using the word rubbish or muck or whatever you want to call it, which are basically belief systems or thoughts which seem to be running the life, and usually end up projecting a lot into the future or into all kinds of control type ideas. And there is, along with that comes usually levels of suppression. I mean, I was an addict, so that meant like high levels of suppressing feelings. So suppressing feelings, so those are the two aspects which create a stronger, it's like a more dominant ego in front of the presence, in front of the authenticity, which then sort of seem to be this kind of murk, which starts, you know, lots of thinking and lots of negative feelings, you know, which tend to be managed through some form of addictive or suppression behavior. So, for example, it could be through anytime there's an uncomfortable feeling to binge out on food, or anytime there's an uncomfortable behavior or feeling to be compulsively doing activity or working, or so that you have non-stop thinking and non-stop achieving. So all of that stuff means that this stuff stays very, very dominant and very, very heavy. And usually, like with my case, because I used to be a food addict, that would lead to progressively going downhill and disorders getting more and more severe, you see. So as you do that, you realize that as you let all of this stuff go, so there's two layers. The Course in Miracles is letting go of the thoughts, and then you want to allow feelings to come up without trying to push them back in again. And the thing to know with that is it's finite. You know, there's only so much in there, and if you start letting it go out. Now, if you're on the fast track of spirituality, it'll mean that lots and lots of feelings will come up very, very rapidly, and you need spiritual support at that point to not make you go into destructive thinking, and not to go into and also there's be a huge tendency not to allow the feelings to come up and be released. So all kinds of thoughts will come up. Oh, these feelings are too uncomfortable. By doing this spiritual work, there's too many feelings coming up. So let's go and use on food or activity or workaholism or whatever it is to distract me, you know, from letting this stuff out. So as soon as you do any kind of behavior, whether it be binging on food or making sure, you know, have like 700 things to do by the end of the day, you know, which is just another form of not allowing the stuff to come up and be released rather than doing spiritual activity, then all that stuff stays in.
So the ego blocks off, it puts up barriers to stop the authentic self.
Yes, yeah. In fact, that's what will happen with this type of work, is that there usually will be huge resistance because we're unlayering the two major fundamental pillars, the two fundamental belief systems and thinking and doing actions which are orchestrated from the ego to block the experiencing of the authentic self, plus not allowing feelings, and sometimes they can be very, very strong feelings or volcanic, to come up and be released. So it'll be like the ego will usually try and distract you. As soon as this thing comes up, well, it's all very, very interesting, but you know, I've got so many things to do, or it may come up with, you know, so one needs clarity on what are the types of activities one does to not allow feelings to come up and be released, and also to dismantle the thoughts which are orchestrating life.
If you're deconstructing yourself in that way, I would imagine you feel quite fragmented. And so how do you, because it's almost like your core is being ripped out, and you're kind of, it's like you're free falling. So
yes.
How do you stabilise that whilst you're going through that process?
It's a very good question. Okay, so again, that's good, and we'll get into. You stabilise yourself through groups and contact with other people who've been before you, who share their experience with you and give you strength and support that it's okay. What you're going through is not bad. Otherwise, the thoughts will come in that this is not good, and therefore you need to stop immediately. So, like I've been doing spiritual work now for, I think, over 15 years. So there are phases where there's huge emotions coming up, and lots of thinking will come up. I'm not sure if this is good for me or not, you know, or maybe this is not a great idea. Now, the thing what I would say is, it's like your core is being ripped out, did you say? Well, I would say your ego is being ripped out, you see. Now, well, it's a good point, because you see, the whole thing with the Course is I've identified that my thinking and also my thinking is me. Yeah. So is the thinking, you know, one would have to ask the question, is the thinking and the authentic self? You see? So if you remove the thinking, I mean, let's say a newborn baby, that's coming from me today, that hasn't learnt any language, you know, is just fully present, you know. Is that baby not got its core? Has that baby, like, is there something wrong with the baby? Look, you haven't got all your thinking yet, so you haven't got a core yet. You're not really you. This thinking stuff is the real you. So you're a non-entity yet. You haven't yet got your thinking. Does that sound right? No, it doesn't sound right. But that's what happens when you have a strong ego.
Okay.
That's what happens when you have a strong ego. And actually, it's true. It feels like, it'll say like, I'm being ripped out, or I'm losing all sense, and things are going so badly, you know, and, you know, this is wrong. You're letting me go, you see. So that great fear will come up. And like, what will you be without me? And you need me. So the core things, like, my thinking has saved your life all this time, and it's been looking after you. You need me. You can't let me go. What will you be without me? And also, fear is good. It's you're being afraid of things and you trying to control things and being in charge, which has been saving your life all this time. So those are like core ideas of the ego. And don't let me go. You need fear to survive. You need, fear is good for you because you look out for danger. And you need my thinking to control the future and be safe. So as you let it go, it comes out. These ideas come up to the surface. Like you're taking your core out. What will you be? It'll be so shaky. You need me. So those are the classical things that come up. And in even the 12 steps here, it's like you'll become a nothing. You become empty. You become a vegetable. Oops, sorry. There'll be. Sorry. Hello? Hi, Penny. Come on up. So all those thoughts, as you start to do the spiritual work. So that's why you need someone who's been before you to say, is that your core? Is that intuitively? Because if someone's gone through the work, they can say, like, yeah, I understand. It will feel like you're taking your core, but is it your core? Is that thinking, like if you've got a baby and then you teach them this thought, you've got to be successful.
They get conditioned.
Yeah, you get conditioned, and then you teach them, fear is good for you, and you must plan for the future. So, and then the baby actually believes that all this thinking is me. Later on it forgets that there was a state more pure, more authentic than that, and says, no, you can't take my thoughts away. That is me. That is my identity. I'll be nothing without that, So these great thoughts will come up. So I would say you're not going to lose your core. You won't lose your authenticity because your core and authenticity has got nothing to do with everything that has been put on top of you. Yes? Does that make sense? So I say, you can disregard that thought. That's an ego thought, you see?
Yeah.
You say, no, without me, you can't. You'll be nothing. But actually, you were before thoughts came. So then the fear goes because someone has told you. And that's true. Yes? Because I can share that with you. But otherwise, the ego is too dominant. If you haven't got if you haven't got a spiritual pathway or people who've gone before, then the ego is too highly defended in that way. So that's the thing with that. So what we get to is intuition and divine thought, which is. I'll just say hello to Penny. Okay.
Hi, Penny.
Hi, Penny. So we get intuition and divine thought. So you see, people who've done spiritual work live in peace and presence. We've all had glimpses of peace and presence and intuition. Yeah. So it's like, it is possible to live and make the choices and decisions from peace. You need someone to tell you that. You don't need to be in fear constantly to live your life. You don't need to, and intuition, and when you've cleared out the rubbish, this intuition and divine thoughts are more than able to look after you, you see, rather than the reliance on what I'd call the ego. But again, it requires the spiritual work, and it is very, very useful to be in groups or to have people who've gone before you.
Because ego is crafty.
The ego is very crafty.
Ego will tell you when you're driving home, isn't it Groundhog Day? Isn't this life you've chosen rubbish?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this for yourself? It's very, very, and the voice goes on and on and on. And that's why I'm glad I'm doing the lessons that when you said you beat them on your stopwatch.
Yeah.
I've got the lessons on the app, and it's like a little harp going off 4 times a day, sometimes 3 times a day, because depending on what the lesson is.
Yes.
And I do it immediately. As soon as I hear that harp, if I'm driving, as soon as I get home, I do it.
Yeah.
I do the lesson because then it brings me back to that's what you're doing. Even though ego's singing in the background, going, "Isn't it rubbish? Isn't it rubbish?" And I think, well, this is the antidote to the ego, so I'm just going to keep doing it. Even though I'm not feeling it, I'm not feeling any love, I'm not feeling anything, I'm just feeling ego's giving me a bashing. I just keep doing it because my belief is too strong. My connection, my thy will be done all day long with God. Sometimes I wake up in, this morning it happened actually, I woke up in, I can't describe it, it's a feeling of, here we go again, you know, and I don't like that feeling, but I try and combat it, you know, I immediately,
Yes.
by picking up my spiritual books that I read, you know, I liken it to, and I've done it in my other recovery, is you've got to have parting on this side, and really the way to live the life is to do the parting on the other side, and we've got to get used to it.
Yes.
And every now and then that's urge to go like that and go, oh no, it's got to be like this, you know. So I have the books in front of me to read.
Yes.
I have the course that goes off every 4 hours or whatever it is, you know.
Yes.
So even if I'm in that despair, a day of despair, I just do it because I you know, I want to condition myself to not know any other way. If there's a problem, just do it, and then the connection gets stronger. And like you say, it's like the layers, you know, you're
Yes.
starting to see the curtain's really dark, and then as you do it, it gets lighter.
Yes.
Lighter and lighter and lighter. So that's the belief. That's my belief inside. Even though some days I ring my friends up and go, I'm mad. You know, you're going to guess what I've been thinking, because the ego's on the run.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
sending you mental.
Yeah.
You know?
I've heard, I can't remember where it was I heard it, or one of the tapes I listened to, the conscious mind was never intended to be making the decisions or to working things out. It's the subconscious mind, or that intuitive part of us,
Yes.
that knows what to do.
Yes.
We're only meant to follow through on the actions of it, but it's when the ego starts trying to manage it that we then start getting into problems sometimes, because we do things that we think are intuitive but they're not.
Yes.
They're ego driven, whereas
That's right.
that part of us, if we just get still and quiet and listen to it, is actually the higher mind that has an overview of it all, and it knows what to do if we just get quiet and listen to it. But of course the ego wants to just run on self-will and just, it knows best. So we get into problems. So yeah, that part of us that's really quiet and intuitive, and when you do tune into it and you get those moments where you think that was really intuitive, and I really did tune in there, and that was, you know, it's like it happens, and then you're off again in the other direction with the ego. But I find the more you tune into it, the more it happens.
Yes.
Because you're listening, you're waiting for it, because it's there. It's just on a different frequency, really, isn't it?
Yes, and I'd say help yourself to tea if you want. So it's on a different frequency. I think as well the spiritual work was that is the two layers. I mean, it's useful to have, yeah, you're quite right, and you can have glimpses of it. I mean, like the Course in Miracles or 12 Steps is like really doing the donkey work, because it's very, very, usually for most people, it's very, very strong. And to clear it all out, it's like there's a lot of shoveling to do to do it. So that's like the Course in Miracles. And I also talk about the feeling of the feelings, because it's like, it is very much like, and there is some research which I often share here that Dr. Hawkins did. It's like at the bottom, you have what's called the bottom levels of consciousness, which means I have tons of suppressed feelings because I was in addiction and using, either on hyperactivity or achieving or food addiction or other addictions, which just suppress. So it's like I already have a backlog of like 100 units of like suppressed feelings, and even that means that it means that the thoughts become very, very heavy and strong when you've got that much stuff in you. And you can even have very, very dark thoughts and very, very fearful thoughts at that layer. And when you're in the lower levels, the thinking becomes usually faster, and also it's like you're tuned into a wavelength. Like if I'm dominated by fear, and it's like my thoughts are like tuning into a wavelength of fear. So when I'm at that level, because I have so much suppressed stuff, it's like, I think I'm going to get mugged as soon as I go out of the house. You know, I probably haven't got enough money. You know, I think people don't like me. You know, I'm going to get sacked tomorrow. So you see, so you're because there's so much suppressed stuff, there's a lot of controlling behaviour, and the thoughts are like tuning into a wavelength of. So as you let go of the suppressed feelings and start letting go of the thoughts, which are part of the belief systems which are being held in mind, then you're like, you may move up to, say, for example, if you let go of a lot of the, feel out the fear without using, and then also let go of the thoughts, for example, through doing A Course in Miracles, you might move on up to anger. If you let enough fear go, you'll be like, you have this a lot of anger coming up, and then you'll be like, the thoughts that will tend to be a lot of angry type thoughts. You know, why did people treat me like that? Why didn't I find this out before? You know, and all of that type of thoughts. And as you let go of more of the suppressed feelings and let go of more of the dominated thoughts, then you start getting to, like, you know, the real levels, like when you're tuning into peace a lot of the time, i.e. you've let go of a lot of the suppressed feelings, and you've let go of a lot of the belief systems that are being held in mind, let them go through the Course in Miracles or other work, then it's like at the levels of peace or acceptance or love, then you're already on a high vibration, so you're tuning in quite easily to the intuition, you see. So there is, for me, it is useful to systematically have a structure to let go of the thoughts. Otherwise there's a lot of a backlog, usually, of stuff to let go.
But what if the fear is so overwhelming that, you know, like that day at the office, when I was at the office, and
Yeah.
I had that urge to, I just wanted to cry, and I couldn't get rid of this feeling, and I was just weighed down with all this, and I didn't know what it was, and I thought, this is never going to end, and then I hit the coffee, you know, and I had 3 cups of strong coffee, and the feeling went. And I thought, that's bad. And I know that was the ego going, oh, drink the coffee, you know, and then it went. But then I knew afterwards I'd done the wrong thing, because the feelings were coming out, you know, they were coming out, but it was just so crushing. I felt like I was being crushed by it. It was all too much, you know, and I wanted to run for the hills and burst into tears and hit everyone and have all these deranged feelings, you know. And I just felt so, I was a bit upset that I'd done that to myself, you know, not gone with it, not gone with the feelings, because they were coming, you know. And
Yes.
I've had it a few times where I've wanted to cry and I've stopped it.
Yes.
The coping mechanism.
Yeah.
The ego.
I mean, it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve, and so I'll be talking a little bit about my story, since you knew a little bit. I had, you know, I was in food addiction, workaholism in the stock market, and then I had sudden kidney failure. I was admitted to the Royal Free Hospital. I had a spiritual experience in the hospital bed, and I heard a voice say, you need to find a spiritual solution. I went to all kinds of spiritual groups. Eventually, in one place, I was handed a DVD of a man, that's one of his books, Dr David R Hawkins. And when I put the DVD in the player and he started to play, I had another spiritual experience when this man was starting to speak. And so I knew he'd be one of my spiritual teachers. For anyone who's familiar with the 12 steps, his name was Dr David R Hawkins. His sponsor was someone called Bill Wilson, one of the founders of the 12 steps.
And didn't he practice kinesiology?
He practiced kinesiology, yes. And that's how he did a lot of the research, which I was talking about. So when you've got too much suppressed feelings, you see okay, so at the bottom levels, it's like there's extreme fear, hopelessness, despair, and all the thoughts are correlating to that level, because you have so much suppressed feelings from addiction, and the thoughts are very, very dominant, non-stop, and because you're in that negative emotional state, you're like tuning into very, very negative thoughts. You're like tuned into a radio frequency of despair. So those thoughts come in, and they start to program. So you have to, as you start doing the spiritual work, letting go of the belief systems, we'll be talking about it in a short while. One of the exercises we do, cancelling beliefs, and also doing the Course in Miracle lessons, and also doing the things. So thanks for that thing. There will be a lot of feelings will start to come up, because it will be like, don't act out on the feelings. And so how can you act out? I mean, I was primarily a food addict. So, and a workaholic, like I had to be doing stuff non-stop and achieving all the time. So it's like you have to have faith and reverse that, like sit with the feelings. Now, because I had this spiritual experience in the hospital bed and also with DVD, so Hawkins' DVD, I knew, like on a spiritual level, that whatever he said was the truth. So it's not explainable. It's not from a rational place. I knew he'd be my teacher. But I watched some of his DVDs, and you can actually download his audios of the DVDs from Amazon on Audible. But anyway, he has one on, for example, because I had kidney failure, I had gout, I had asthma, I had food addiction. So I had all of that, and but he recovered from about 20 illnesses using concepts from the Course in Miracles. And obviously he went to 12 steps, AA, with Bill as a sponsor, so obviously he recovered from the alcoholism as well. So the 12 steps is good for addiction, but if you've got, the Course in Miracles is more advanced, so you can actually let go of physical illnesses. So if they're doing the work, it's very, very simple, but you do have titanic feelings coming up as well, because with this kind of work, it's like the ego, which you're quite right, like the big book says, it's cunning, baffling, powerful. It'll use every single thought to make you stop doing the work, or to use, or to try and do something totally unrelated, like, I need a holiday in Africa right now, I think, so something like that, So anyway, as you let the feelings out, I will talk about it, and you start cancelling the beliefs, letting the thoughts go. You go to higher vibrations, eventually you get glimpses of peace, and there'll be something, you could say your authentic self will know you're doing the right thing, and will start trying to be like giving you intuitions, have faith, let the darkness go, let all the negative feelings, titanic feelings coming up, let go of buying these thoughts. Because I was like showing before about, oh, the thoughts are me, that's my core. But no, it's not. Let the thoughts come, it's not you. Your authentic self is not those thoughts that you learned, you see. So if you hear that, you suddenly realize that's true. Something will tell you that's true. The thoughts aren't you, that you've been conditioned with. So it's safe to let them go. And yes, you're quite right, it was mentioned before, something intuitive will start to go into your life. And the intuition is not thinking. The intuition is actually, like, you could say, your direct connection to God. So God knows everything, everywhere, and when it guides you, it'll always be right. So, for example, I can share this because eventually Dimitri will be back, but I had an intuition. I hadn't spoken to the person whose place this is for about 10 years, but I had an intuition to contact her. I needed a place to do. And she had just previously, she hadn't seen me for a very, very long time, seen me on a video on YouTube, by coincidence. So when you get into the spiritual realms and you meet people, you start to be run on intuition. People know, oh, that must be right, that's a higher power thing, you see, you sort of say. So it's not from the thinking mind, you start to get that clear connection. So as you let go of the negative feelings and start cancelling the thoughts, you go onto like a higher wave band. You see, now it's like anger. You were in deep fear and shame and despair, and now it's like you're on a radio station of anger, a lot of angry thought. But still let go of the thoughts, still do the processes, the course or 12 steps, and still allow the feelings to come up. And then eventually you'll get up to levels of peace. And then you have a clear connection, where the intuitive connection is far more regular and constant. And you trust it now. Because when you trust the intuition, it's like it doesn't come from thinking. But if you follow it, things always go well with that. So now feeling feelings, if you really want to do the work, or if you're in a really dark place, or if you start doing the work, very, very strong feelings will come up. And also thoughts to not do the work or do something else, or make yourself busy, or try and do something different, or will come up at the same time. So with the negative thoughts you want to cancel, do the Course in Miracles lessons. Now feeling feelings, like part of the reason I do it is to share my experience about feelings. Feelings are, so I'll share this because Hawkins, and it's in his books and it's in on his audio as well that you can get. He had, for example, and he let go of about 20 illnesses using these methods, which he shares about, which I've done. Since doing them, you know, I had a transplant. I was just discharged from the asthma clinic because they said I no longer needed the inhalers. I was having medication for gout, and they stopped the medication because I stopped having gout attacks for years. I was on, when I had the transplant, as I was saying, I started off with 13 medications for a transplant patient, and just by doing the cancelling of beliefs, I went down. I mean, I share this regularly because it's just what I'm sharing my experience. That by doing the exercises, I went down to just one medication, from 13 medications to one in 3 years, and the doctor in the Royal Free Hospital said to me he doesn't know of any other transplant patient who takes less medication than me. So that's what I call miracles, and that's just by letting go of the dominance of my thinking and allowing the feelings to come up. Now, the thing, what about if the feelings are so strong? Yes. So what gave me a lot of heart, and I knew he was telling the truth, was that Hawkins, this does sound unbelievable, but fair enough, you know, but we're getting into realms of the spiritual. Hawkins, for example, one of my favourite bits, which really, really inspired me, was that he was out using his electric saw in the trees, cutting the trees, and he sawed his thumb off. So he sawed his thumb off, and he does this thing which I do, which is to immediately feel the feelings and say yes to the feelings, and just to be 100% present. So he sawed his thumb off. So that's quite a strong feeling, I think, if you sawed your thumb off. So anyway, sawed his thumb off, but he does this practice, which he teaches, which I do, which has allowed a lot of illnesses to leave me through the miraculous, which is just be 100% present with the feeling. And you want to do the opposite of what I was hard about that. So the opposite would be to think a lot, to have the thoughts, I don't want this feeling right now, I wish it would go away, or to try and do something to not have that feeling. Yeah? So everyone should be able to identify with me on that, because, you know, it would be like, I mean, that's quite horrific, but, you know, but actually, with horrific things in my life, I've turned to food. You know, having panic attacks, I'd eat food. I wouldn't call, you know. So you just be with it. So I did that, and so I'll share my experience. First, I'll share it. So anyway, he only had 8 drops of blood fall off, which is like impossible, because it's like, but if you're 100% present, miracles happen. And he was also allergic to anaesthetic. And they took him to the hospital, and he told the doctor, I'm allergic to anaesthetic. So they had to actually operate on him without any anaesthetic. So he did the thing of just being 100% present with the feelings. And you have to master the technique, but he went off into bliss. And I knew he was telling the truth. So that's the thing. So for example, with myself, when I went off a food addiction, in the beginning I had panic attacks. The very first time I had a panic attack, I did use on the food to stop the feelings, which did work. But the next time, I just used the technique that Hawkins said, just 100% allow the feelings to come up. The panic attack is like you can't breathe and you think you're going to drop dead. That's what a panic attack is like. So it's like, you know, just welcome it. Just say yes to it, yeah? And the thought is you're going to die, you're suffocating, you're going to die. So, you know, call an ambulance, eat some food, do anything to stop the feelings. You know, this is, you're about to drop. So the thing I did with that was, because I had one panic attack and I'd used on it. So I just said, look, I just reverse it. So I'm not saying it's easy, you just reverse the thought. I'm going to sit through these feelings, and if I die, I die. That's it. And then you allow the feelings to come up. and you just sit through them. So I'll explain going through a panic attack. It's like you can't breathe, you're suffocating, there's thought going on, you're going to die because there's no air in the room. So I'd already gone with the intention that I'm going to sit through this feeling, and I'm not going to let go of all thoughts. So I mean, the way I counteracted that was, fair enough, then I'll drop dead. So accept it, you know. I mean, I had the faith that Hawkins said it won't happen. And I knew he was telling the truth. It's like, if you're an addict and you're killing yourself through food addiction, if you follow the advice of your head, you will die. You know, because you're going downhill. And he's shown his experience that, you know, life is actually going through it and not stepping down. So the ego then, you know, because what's sharing is like extreme feelings come up if you challenge the dominance of the ego. It's like you're trying to dominate me. So as soon as you do, I'm going to scare everyone in the room, but I mean, someone that also shared, you don't die. I mean, these feelings come up. So it's like, I was willing, I had the faith on the experience of someone who said you won't, but you have to challenge, you have to go face your fear, you know, and the ego's, I would say a panic attack is a psychosomatic reaction of the ego, because this spirituality is facing its dominance. So it just creates these illnesses out of the blue. You can't breathe, thoughts that you're going to die, and you must use, or you must do something negative. These are the protection. So he said he had gone through it, and I had faith in him. So, but then comes the thing of, after you've heard the experience of someone who's been through it, is to do it yourself. And that, but you know, in 12 steps, for example, you might make a phone call. But this is the thing. So I was willing to go through it, and it was 15 minutes. It was 15 minutes of basically feeling like there's no air in the room, and a constant thought you're going to be dead. And then after about 15 minutes, it's like I could start to breathe again, you know. And then it's like the air was suddenly back in the room, where it hadn't been. There was no air in the room for 15 minutes, but suddenly it seemed like there was air in the room. And then it passed. And that's like a huge batter to the ego. You know, it's like because you've had the faith to act on the experience of others, and you've gone through, you're not going to die, but you are dying if you keep following the insanity of your head and not allowing these feelings to escape. You know, if you have the courage, something will safely take you through, and you realize it's an illusion. So, now this is the thing. After I'd gone through, the first one I used, but after I'd gone through that panic, I wasn't scared of panic attacks anymore, because I had lived through it without using, and just sitting through and facing the thought you're going to drop dead for 15 minutes. And I knew that, you know, it's like your spirituality just jumps up so much, you know, you've just like smashed, like the ego has come on with full guns to make you to go back, and you've just gone through it. So you have to feel free to ask any questions. You have the courage to face the ego, because in the beginning it will be like torrential. So then I had 3 more panic attacks. This was getting over food addiction. 3 more panic attacks, like the ego like wanted to make sure, you know, if I could chicken out again 3 more times, you know. So I went through, but it was much easier. After I'd gone through 1, it was much easier, and the 3, and then, you know, that was about 8 years ago. And I've not had a panic attack since, apart from a tiny one after my general anaesthetic for my transplant operation, but more or less for 8 years, you know, I've not had a panic attack, because this is the thing I want to say with really, really difficult feelings and thoughts like you're going to die, or it's too much, or you've got to give in, or it's never going to end. These kind of thoughts is that if you go through them, you'll never be the same again once you've gone through them, because
you can't know what you know.
Yeah, I mean, it loses its power, you know, because it had you in a grip. Like, I was a food addict for my whole life, and it was like, as soon as I challenged the ego, I got into touch with spirituality. It's like the ego goes, I'm going to bring out the big stuff now to make you turn back and be under my control. So, you know, it was panic attacks. So, and then Hawkins described that, look, it's a game of the ego, and if you try and become free of it, it will bring up very, very difficult feelings and thoughts. That's all it is. And actually, with the stuff we're going through, there is something that is you, which is not the feelings and thoughts that come and go. So, okay, so that's one, because what about extreme feelings? So you jump, because once you, I help people with food addiction. I had one girl with me, and who I was helping to get over food addiction, and she, I remember one day saying to her, look, you just have your 3 meals a day with nothing in between. And she looked at me like horrified, because she'd never tried to not stop the binging, you know. And I said to her, this was the thing. It was quite amusing, I think. It was quite. So I said to her, are you hungry right now? And she said yes. So I thought, brilliant, you know. So I told her the technique, which is just basically just allow the feelings to come up, and don't identify with the thoughts, and just welcome all the feelings and let them come up. And I sat with her, and I said, you know, even the word hunger is a thought, let it go. Any kind of thinking, let it go as it's coming up, and just welcome the feeling. Say yes to the feeling, like I want all of it to come up. So I sat with her and she did it. And after 15 minutes, again it was about 15 minutes for some reason, she said, and I said to her, we're going to sit here until it passes, until you're not hungry. And she sat through it, and after 15 minutes she said, I'm not hungry, you see? So she'd never experienced that her whole life, that if you sit with the feelings, let them come up, let go of the negative thoughts. She'd never had the experience that she could sit through the hunger until she felt okay again. Never.
Can you do that with anxiety? You
can do that with anxiety. You'll find it will come. Anxiety is usually a lot of suppressed fear. If you sit with anxiety and let go of the thoughts, you will get to peace. Okay.
What if it's so severe though, it's crippling you? You
do it in chunks. Okay. So it's like if you've got let's say you've got a major thing like depression or anxiety, or you're in a lot of darkness. You just keep doing the spiritual work because you're taking chunks of it out. If you got to, like I'll explain how you do it. So if how you feel feeling. So anxiety is like a lot of thinkingness, yeah? Like, you know, something's going to go wrong, or things aren't good, blah, blah, blah. It's constantly going on. And there's like so let go of identifying with the thoughts, yeah? And then you allow just the feeling to be present, okay? So if you just allow, feeling, now, and it'll say, oh, the feeling is anxiety. No, anxiety is a word, okay? So let that go, and this will never end. No, that's a thought, let that go. And then allow just the energy. So if you let go, you start practicing letting go of the interest in thoughts. There's just an energy. So now you just have energy, but energy is a word. It's just the sensation. Yeah, I'm using words. So you're going from the labeling and the interest in describing what's going on. Also, you might think, oh, it's anxiety in my chest. Okay, so let go of the word chest. Okay, then what you'll find is that as you're letting go of these labels like anxiety, chest, location, it'll start to become more and more diffuse and formless as you're welcoming it up. Eventually, now if you do this properly, you want good news? Good news is that if you do it properly, don't label, and just welcome the energy, and even let go of energy and location in body, then it'll be like what it would mean is there's zero resistance to what is coming up. So basically it's like you've taken the ego out, and it's just like you're allowing it to come, just in a non-edited, non-labeled form. And you're having the attitude of yes, let it come up. Not like the hidden thing of the ego is like, I don't want this feeling to be here. You've let that go. It's like, yes. Now, if you do it right, and sometimes it takes practice, but when you do it right, you'll start to feel happy. And there'll be a great feeling that something is being released from you. And it's like, basically what you've done is you've surrendered your ego thinking about it. So God comes in And it's like a magic hand that just lets this darkness come out in a very pleasurable way.
You can do that with depression as well.
You can do that with depression. Depression, you know, well, all of them are just thinking. Yeah.
So you don't label anything that comes up, you just allow it to just
Come up.
You just say that's a thought and I'm going to let that go.
Yeah. And there's an attitude which is not thinking. The attitude is let it come up, let it be.